One with your host, Sal Santori. And thank you, the greatest global family of all time of viewers and listeners, for joining us. You're fantastic, and we would not have a show without you. Would not be able to do any of the things that we do without you. So thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everything you do to make all of our efforts to help support our families and veterans successful. And we know it's successful because we get feedback across the country, which is beautiful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as always, we want to mention some of our sponsors. And one of our great friends and sponsors is the Faro Car Club of Lebanon. Pharaohs are a national organization with local chapters, and they've been wonderful since we got to meet each other and understand our missions. They are so supportive and a great bunch of guys and gals holding car events all over the place and inviting us to come and join in and bring our information along with them. So it's a fantastic thing. And thank you, Pharaoh's Car Club of Lebanon. And we also want to thank Pat Garrett and the Pat Garrett Amphitheater, along with the Pat Garrett Sheepskin in Strausstown, Pennsylvania. Pat is a fantastic guy, country music artist, records down in Nashville and puts out albums all the time. And he's wonderful. He's launched several careers, mine included. So when you decide you've had enough of old Sal here, just contact Pat and say, "Hey Pat, what were you thinking?" You know what I mean? What were you thinking, Pat? So thank you, Pat. And we couldn't say enough about our family of listeners. And every week it seems I have a new person or group to introduce to our family, joining our family. And right now, this week is no exception. We have, in fact, this is fantastic. I can't wait to tell you about this. We have a member of the Chicago Police Force who is known as Super Cop. So I want to tell you, welcome, Super Cop. Thank you for joining our family. And I'm gonna jump out on a limb here. It's got to be a big fat one because I'm a big fat guy. Well, all right, not fat, maybe just all right, enough about me. How about you? Um, but what I'm thinking is we are definitely going to be visiting with the entire Chicago police force in the next couple of weeks. I know they'll be interested to see what we're doing and talking about because a lot of police officers are actually veterans, come back and choose to join the police force and continue their career there. So when we're talking about veterans and families, we're not excluding anyone, and we want to welcome the men and women in blue to our family. So we're going to start out with the Chicago Police Force, and I'm going to say thank you in advance, and we'll be talking with some folks out there real soon. So without further ado, I've been talking about our super guest by the name of Luther Tyree. Luther comes to us. He's a 25-year Army veteran and served most of his time in the Inspector General's office and did a lot of great work there. So I think Luther's about to come on stage here and join us in the booth. So we see the microphone stand coming in. Luther can't be far behind. So we won't let him get adjusted. I don't want him to write me up for anything. You know what I mean? So if it's extra time he needs and I got to ramble on, you bet I'm going to do it. Yeah. But 25 years in the military and 27. Wow, there's gig number two already. I'm failing this miserably. Luther, I'm so glad you could join us. Let's make sure. Yeah, okay. We were really. I mean, give a recap again, Luther, about your career and how you got here.
Well, I did 27 years in the Army, all components, both Army Reserve, and National Guard. And I retired in 2013. I was in my next to last assignment before I retired. I was an Inspector General I was the Command Inspector General for the state of Pennsylvania.
Excuse me, just a
Totally.
second, brother. I just want to make sure we're okay. There we go. All right, let's give it a crank.
Okay,
Yeah.
and now I'm a professional musician. I own my own music accessories business, and I work with the local businesses and local governments to help them bring music into their communities. So, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
That's great. So you're helping the community as well.
Yes.
Fantastic. Last time we talked, I was just totally amazed when I asked about piano keys and found out just how in depth and the reality of what a piano key really is. Just highlight that again if you could, really quickly,
Well, one of the
please.
things we do is we make our products, whether they are cigar ashtrays or wall hanging key racks or uh, business card holders out of recycled pianos. And there's a lot of material. There are a lot of materials and resources inside of a piano most people don't know about. There's the wood, there's the ivory of the keys, there's the springs or the hammer mechanisms, and we can make many different crafts and many different other types of products that musicians and musician adjacent people like and can use. We can make those products out of pianos that would otherwise end up in the trash or somewhere in a garbage dump.
I got to ask you one question. How did you arrive at such an incredible and original creative endeavor?
I have to be honest. It was my wife's idea.
No.
Yes, and what in a nutshell had happened was there was another soldier that lived on our street, and he was deployed. And so we were helping his wife take care of her house, cutting the grass, that kind of thing. And they had a piano that they wanted to get rid of, and so one day they just rolled it out of the house and put it on the street. And we saw it. And my wife said, I always wanted to play piano. I never got the chance to play the piano that she had as growing up. So it was in pretty decent shape. So we decided to roll it down the street and put it in our house.
Okay. Okay. Was
And
it an upright
it
or a
was an
baby
upright
grand?
piano. It was an upright.
Okay. Okay.
And so then she decided it was more work than she wanted to do, and now we had a piano we had to deal with. And that's when she got the idea. Hey, she has these. She's like, the keys. If you took some of these keys and put them
Now,
together, it would give.
okay, tell me. But this is really cool because I learned something. I was talking about, to me, a piano key was that little thing that stuck out and had a tiny return,
Mhm.
and then we found out that it is way more than that.
Yes, where a piano key, when you look at it, it's actually about 18 inches long, depending on whether or not it's a baby grand, a grand piano, or an upright piano, or what kind of upright it is. And that it's actually a lever and an arm that actually goes out and hooks into the actual hammer inside of the piano. The hammer, when you push the key moves a hammer that strikes the strings that actually makes the sound that you hear in the piano. So that key is much more than what you just see when you open the keyboard and start to play.
That's incredible. You never know what becomes available, and all of a sudden you get this light bulb that says, "Hey, turn that into something," and here's how.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Now, last time we were talking, we got on to how you transitioned from your military career into what you're doing now.
Hmm.
And I'd kind of like to come forward to that again because we have a lot of folks out there who are in need of an idea, of some way to respark that sense of purpose.
Well, I once I retired. Actually, we've been planning for a while for what we were going to do in my retirement, in our retirement, I should say, my wife and I. And I had always music was always my second passion past the military.
Pass writing people up.
Let me go on a little bit of an aside there. When I started as a young lieutenant in 1987, I never thought in a million years. My idea was I was going to be charging across whatever and holding my
Right,
tank
right.
or in my plane or whatever and doing it. I never thought in a million years that I'd be sitting down somewhere on a staff doing something like being the inspector general. That was not in my plan.
Right, right.
Um, so since I did music since I was in grade school, and that was my other passion. So we decided that in our second act, that should be one of the focuses that I should do music. And so I also my grandfather was a master craftsman cabinet maker, and he taught me from a young age. My cousin and I, he taught us from a young age how to do all that woodworking. When
Okay.
he passed, I acquired his workshop, so I enjoy that as well. So we decided that between those two things, that should be what we should do in our next act. And
Okay.
so when I retired, I went back to school to get caught up on the music piece. And the people that I ended up dealing with in school for music, or the people that I started to seeing what they were doing, I started to get the idea that, hey, we go to these craft shows, we play at a craft show. Look at what these people do at a craft show. Maybe we can start to make some of these things and sell them at craft shows. And oh, hey, uh, the musician needs a chair, and they charge $500-600 for a musician's chair. And I said, I can make that. I have a wood shop. I know how to do that. I can make that. Well, maybe somebody else needs that. So because a lot of the accessories that I needed coming out of the Army, coming back into the music scene, yes, you can buy them, but I have a workshop, so I could build them. So once I started building them, I said, hey, and things that you don't think about, like a neck stand for when you have your guitar on the bench and you're changing your strings. You don't think about, a chair so you can sit and perform in the chair. You don't think about the footrest you need when you're sitting in the chair to put your foot up on so you can hold your instrument in the proper place. Well, you buy those things, other people buy
Right.
those things,
Right.
but I've got a workshop. So I just build them. And I said, well,
Mm.
hey, and you look at some of the problems that some of these other products have, and you say, I can adjust and make it better.
Right. Right.
So now I'll sell that. Maybe I can sell that, and another musician might have a need for this as well. And that was the genesis
Okay.
of starting to. And we said, okay, a piano. Well, piano's made out of wood. Maybe I can take that wood and turn it into a footstool, or turn it into a chair, or turn it into a cigar ashtray, or turn it into uh, my wife could turn the hammers into earrings, is what she did. Hammers and necklaces, earrings
Okay.
and necklaces. She turned the hammers into. So that's how it kind of evolved from me just actually playing guitar and doing studio work and doing live sound and mixing, to actually doing all that, and then the craft piece and the accessories piece as well.
Luther, I believe last time we talked about like towards the end of your career is when you were deployed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that now? If you're okay to tell us a little bit about your deployment, and even more importantly, from leaving deployment to starting to really move forward in the civilian realm. And I also recall that your experience was a lot different because of the military's made a lot of changes to what we were used to. How would I say? Previous wars.
Yes.
Okay. And what you've experienced is really what I'd like folks to hear about, because we need to know the changes that you're bringing to the table.
Well, when I went on deployment, when I went on my combat deployment, we were on a, what's the best way to say it without using jargon? We were advisors. So we were actually embedded with the Afghans. We lived with the Afghans up in the mountains on the border of Pakistan. And our job was to train their command personnel how to do modern military operations. Two of the people that I was directly responsible for training it was one of their brigade commanders, and one of their and his deputy, and I also trained their command post personnel on how to do that piece of combat, fighting, and insurgency. So we went through a lot of training as far as the language and customs and courtesies and all that
Okay.
stuff of the Afghans, and we lived with them and worked with them for about 8 or 9 months. Uh, that was a that was really different, because again, you got to know those people. You got to know those people. You got to know things about their families and everything. And you learned a lot about the their culture and what they were really experiencing going through that. Um, that area was the area that our area was the area Bin Laden was in when they got him.
Can I just ask you one, compared to the media, the media portrayals. How how do they compare the reality and the media representation?
Well, the problem, I don't know how many of our veterans who would understand, who are out there who would understand this, but in many instances, because of the nature of the combat, okay, so you're talking about a multi-spectrum combat. It's not combat like you see on the History Channel, World War II, or maybe Korea. There are no front lines. Everybody's at risk. Everybody's fighting. So what? And there are really no safe areas. There are areas that are more safe than others. Well, in a lot of instances, a lot of these reporters that you see, I don't care who they're from, whether they're Fox News, whether they're CNN, whoever, they were in the green zones in, like, in our case, green zone would have been Kabul or even Bagram Air Base, in a reasonably safe area.
Okay.
What they would do is they would pay locals to give them information. So those locals have an incentive to tell you something.
Mm,
So a lot of times the information that they got and they reported to the American people wasn't accurate because they didn't go out and verify it or get that information. That was given to them by somebody who was getting paid to give them a story.
right, right.
And so I learned that firsthand in our very first engagement because it was a suicide bomber. We got hit. Things went bad. We got the situation under control. And the next day, I turned on my computer and I brought up Yahoo, and Yahoo was reporting on the attack that happened to us, and it was completely different than what had happened just the day before. And I was like, I was right there. I saw this, and this is not what happened. And I said, how in the world did they get this
Right,
out
right.
of what happened? And it was like, oh, the reporters never leave the green zone. So they got that from some guy that sells wood, sells firewood to people that he just happened to be coming by with his burro, and they paid him some money. They asked him what he saw. He gave them a report, and they printed it. So that's where why a lot of what was going on you didn't get. It wasn't being accurately reported to the American people because the reporters just weren't going out and getting that information. Now, to a certain extent, to be fair, you're talking about a highly, highly, highly dangerous areas that they're going into.
Right,
And
right.
you're asking for a lot of character for somebody to go into a situation like that unarmed with a big sign on their back that says press.
Right. Press the
Yeah,
button.
right. These people have no compunction about killing children. Here you are, a
Right.
blue-eyed American with press on his back.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the Allah.
Right, and no weapon, no weapon. Talking about what's your opinion on it? No.
Yeah, right.
So
What?
that's why you didn't get. There was a lot of information that you didn't that didn't come out exactly accurate, or like the first. They always say the first report's always wrong. By the time they did start to get the real reports, well, things had moved on.
Right.
They would start to get information from us, for example, after we were, because when we would get attacked, all of our communications outside of military channels were shut down. So that if anyone got killed or injured, they didn't, their families weren't seeing their family members on TV or anything like that. We'd get everything kind of under control, and then we'd report, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened, blah blah. And by that time, everybody had moved on. So.
Well, I think also another factor there is like strategic security, probably, huh?
Yes.
We want to, yeah, we don't want,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
That's self-explanatory.
When you had that game, that game, if you want to call it a game, was played we were very cagey about that because depending on how and when we reported about incidents, that could help you to fight the enemy. That could cause them to do things that they might otherwise not do.
Right.
And we would be able to get at them that way.
Right.
So the information war, quote unquote, was very key. And that's one of the reasons we weren't as successful as we should have been, because we didn't leverage that.
Okay.
We didn't leverage that as we could have, and our opposition leveraged that very well.
Now, when you came back, we had talked last time about the transition period, the reintegration, and the fact that there are now some things in place that hadn't been before.
Right. Well, my experience was, and what was supposed to happen, it evolved over time from call it 2002 to call it until the end of the war, on terror, which was probably 2000, well, probably 2022 or so. What happens? What happens? What happens is they give you a certain amount of time. You are held back from getting all the way home for a certain period of time. Now, it's situationally dependent on where that actually happens.
Okay.
It happens usually somewhere in the United States. You come home, maybe it's back to home station or whatever, but you come back and for a week or two you're there, and they go through your demobilization process. They start processing your paperwork, looking at things that happened to you while they were there, so you can get your awards. Any medical situations you may have acquired, any additional medicines you may take now, everything. They go through all those processes as they did before you went on deployment, i.e., when you go on deployment, one of the things they do is check to make sure your shots are up to date.
Right. Yeah.
Well, on the way out, they do all that kind of stuff in reverse. And one of the things they do is they do a mental health check, an initial mental health check.
I failed that, by the way.
And you come home, and pretty much that you come back, and pretty much that's you just kind of you only do a couple of tasks that day, and then they've got the rec center there. You can go play ping pong, or you read a book, or watch some movies, or whatever you want to do. And you kind of, and the chow hall is there. You can go get food when you want. Nobody's bothering you. You kind of get a chance to, you can call your family, and you
Decompress.
can get a chance to kind of ease into it. So by the time that's over, when you actually get back to your family, you've had a little bit of time to come down from that heightened state of
Awareness.
and then at that point you go through further demo. They start getting into the details of some of the things they checked you for initially. So for example, if you've got say you've got back problems now because of all the weight you carried and everything, and they gave you some muscle relaxants or anything to help to take care of it while you were in theater, and you come out and you say, okay, I got this back issue. Okay, they say, okay, yeah, well, you got this back issue. When you get back to home station, you're going to report to the doc, and they're going to give you another evaluation so we can send you to a specialist to get you squared away. So when you get back, then you'll go on leave, and then you'll come back from leave, and then they'll send you to those specialists and all those other things they have to, maybe you got promoted, so they got to do paperwork for that. So you'll come back, and once you come back off of leave, they'll send you to that. So that's the second part of the demobilization process. Once you initially come in from theater. So you initially come in from theater, you do about anywhere from depending on who you are and how long you were deployed, 1 to 3 weeks. And then you come back home, you go on your leave, however long that is that you take. Usually they'll give you a minimum of 30 days. Even if you didn't have it built up, they'll give you 30 days leave when you get back to your family. And then when you come back off of that leave, you'll go through your second phase of demobilization, where all the things that they may have determined that you needed further, either evaluation or further treatment or further to address further, they will start doing that at that point, and then you go back to regular garrison training, garrison situation from there.
Now that's really one of the key things that we hit on last time was the difference between if you're demobbing because you're continuing your enlistment, or if in fact you're ETSing.
Right. If you're that's three different things actually. If you're demobbing and you're still on active duty, then you finish your demob, you go on leave, you come back, you do the additional things you need to do, and then you just go back to being in garrison, whatever your situation in garrison
Right.
is, which usually is doing your train up for whatever your next mission is going to be. If you're, say, in the reserves as a National Guard, when you demobilize, and believe it or not, yes, you do get leave. That's military leave once you're done, before you actually revert to being a civilian, for lack of a better term. Then when you go back home after that leave, when you're done with that leave and you go home, then you go back into the world. Now they will still continue to treat you for any issues that you had,
Okay.
but you go back to your regular civilian job after that.
Right.
And if you're ETSing, then you go through your demobilization process. You take your after deployment leave, and then you're out of the service and you go on to do whatever else you're going to do in your civilian life.
Right. Right. Now, and I think that's one of the big things that has improved with the military, with reintegration, is the fact that they're spending so much time with our troops as we're coming out. Is it? And I know we talked about this last time. I'd asked you, going through the exit process. One of the things is if you check yes on this form anywhere, you're going to be here longer.
Mhm.
And we talked about, well, you may need to be, which, you know, logically and intellectually, we can agree that, yeah, that would be the right decision.
Mhm.
But when we're coming back, it's look, man, I want to get as far away from here as I can
Mhm.
to get back to my family as quickly as I can.
Right.
Um, what are your thoughts? What do you see going on a lot in that area?
Well, I think initially, say 2002, 2003, 2004, that situation was a lot more problematic than it is now because when you, as they had it when I demoed, you you're going to be at the demob station for however long. So even if you don't check the box and get out of that particular station early,
Okay.
you're not going home.
Okay.
So you might as well stay. It's not like if you're going to be at the demob station for 2 weeks and on day 3 of your demob, when you go through medical and say, I have this issue, that they're going to keep you for an additional week. That's not going to happen. So you should go ahead. And if you have to stay at that particular station, whatever, you have to keep going back over the next several days while you're at the demob station for 2 weeks, then do that because you're
Now,
not going to see mom.
I think that was a point that was missed last time,
Mhm.
was the fact that, okay, you're going to be here X amount of days anyway,
Mhm.
regardless.
Right.
And I think I had the impression last time that you could cut that short. Now we did talk about commanders that were able to kind of navigate that.
Right.
But I think for this point that we're making, with our troops, we're going to be there 3 weeks,
Yep.
win or lose or draw.
Mhm.
So, and I agree. The whole message is get everything you can during those 3 weeks.
Exactly. Get everything square because if you don't, it just makes everything exponentially harder once you get back. Now, and as far as commanders cutting that process short, yes, they can do that, but that's neither ethical or according to regulations. I mean, you say you shouldn't do that because that's one of that ends up costing, at a minimum, that ends up costing the government money because you end up missing uh, issues that soldiers have that end up cropping up later, and then you have to try to address it them, and then
Right,
in some cases the person retires and they still have a condition that could have been treated while they were on active duty, and now you have to pay them
right,
disability for that.
right.
So so there is that, but I think when they as the demobilization process, that's one of the reasons they have, you're going to be at the demob station for X amount of time to alleviate that. And one of the other things they do, which they didn't do, like when I was in during Desert Storm, they have a lot more resources for the families. Like when you come back from deployment now, they pay for a weekend at a resort
Oh, wow.
for you and your wife. Like
Wow.
they'll
Okay.
figure out the child care and everything, and they pay for a weekend, and you do actually reintegration classes
Wow.
with professionals, and then you go out and party and have your day. You go out and dance and have a good
Right.
time. And that my wife and I went to the Poconos. I think they had it when we got. It was probably probably two probably 2 months after we got back.
Where did you
I think.
stay?
Say again.
Where did you stay?
Mohegan Sun. I think
I
that's.
thought I thought I recognized you. I did a show there that weekend.
I said, okay, that was you. Okay, that was you. All right. All right. Trying to think back. So yeah.
I kept going on, coming over and saying, "Hi, my name's Fred. I'll be your waiter."
Okay, okay. Now I can put a face with a name.
Right. but, but seriously, that is beautiful. I had no idea that that they had gone to that, but
Yes, yes.
that is fantastic.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And then, yeah, and it really believe it, I mean, it really works. It really does. I mean, I had the advantage. My wife and I have been through multiple deployments, both operational and not. So we have we have our way of we had our way of navigating.
Right, right.
So we were in a much better position than many of these young families who are just now understanding uh, what
Yeah.
what what it's about, what your service member is going to experience, what you have experienced, and all the issues that go with all the different issues that go with reintegration.
No, is your wife wife also a veteran or
No,
not? Okay, okay,
so yes,
all right.
yeah, we remember, but she is a Desert Storm war bride.
Okay,
We were married the day after the bombing started in Desert Storm. We were in Germany at the time. I was
okay.
supposed to leave. They gave us a week notice that we were going to deploy to the desert.
Lucky you got a
Yeah,
week. Yeah,
so I got
yeah.
they told us on a Monday we were leaving. I got
Uh,
married on that Friday
okay.
in my combat gear. Got married at
Yeah.
lunch. We got married at lunchtime. They gave me enough time to get off of lunch. I went, got married, got her an ID card, took her back to my apartment, our apartment that we had on the economy in Germany.
Okay, Deutschland.
And then,
Yeah.
and then I went back to the concern and back to the motor pool to keep packing up our tanks.
Okay. Now I understand why the DOD likes you so much. You work well within there's yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. That was when I tell people how we got married, people complain about, well, our wedding was this and our wedding, and I tell people, or my wife tells people how we got married.
We had sea rats for our cake. Yeah.
Okay, my wedding was wasn't that bad.
Some of that pound cake.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Hey, can we do this again next Thursday? This is really great.
I think
Well, we'll check it out. We'll
actually,
check it out. Yeah.
I'll be on the bandstand next Thursday. Up
Oh,
here.
really?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I can come down after we get after.
Well, you know what? We might come up there and visit up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do
Yeah.
that.
That'd be great. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. And as I always say, we have the greatest global family of viewers and listeners of all time. You're wonderful. And our great friend, Luther Tyree, even though I'm glad he was in the IGs. That'll be ours for the next 20 years, right? Thank you for tuning in and watching, and we'll see you on Saturday at 4 o'clock for our Saturday afternoon live, which started out as Saturday morning live. But as you get older, you don't want to get up as early. So now, Saturday afternoon at 4. But actually, the real reason that we changed it to 4 is I'm helping my son open up here on Veterans Row. He's opening Furs on Willow, and he has a product line of sheepskins for vets, which are gloves and shoes and slippers, some beautiful coats, seat covers, all the things that would really, make some nice cozy comfort in this. Now it's getting cold. So we're open here Saturdays from 9 to 4, or I'm sorry, 9 to 3. So we bumped the show back to 4, and it seems to be working real good for a lot of folks. So we're still keeping Thursday afternoon at 1 and with our good friend Luther. So until Saturday and then again next Thursday, we'll see you then and have a great week. And as always, I ask you, please find